Most of us have a tendency to concern ourselves with the things that seem to be a present and real danger to ourselves or our loved ones. But homophobia is a menace, and like other forms of loathing and hatred, it lurks just beneath. But sometimes it can reach out and destroy anything that presents a threat, real or imagined. Here are 3 cases of death and serious bodily injury caused because somebody thought somebody was gay. Thanks for joining me for Hey, Are You Gay? On January 11, 2023 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, 49-year-old Daniel Engeldrum was attacked and beaten on his head. While he was trying to flee from the attacker, he was lifted and thrown headfirst onto the pavement from an elevated wheelchair ramp. Engeldrum's body was found in a pool of blood on the evening of the 11th. He died 2 days later. 32-year-old Elijah Humphrey was later arrested and charged with first-degree manslaughter and intimidation due to bias because he thought Engeldrum was gay and making a pass at him. According to the affidavit presented in court, Humphrey can be seen on a surveillance video walking just outside of a church. When he's approached by Engeldrum, Humphrey walks past the man a short distance, stops, returns, and attacks Engeldrum. According to the affidavit, you can see Engeldrum fleeing Humphrey, who catches up to him, lifts him by the waist, and hurls him headfirst from the elevated wheelchair ramp onto the pavement. Humphrey reportedly told the police he attacked Engeldrum in a fit of rage after the homeless man looked him in the eye and made the sound 3 times. The affidavit claimed Humphrey saw this as a sign that Engeldrum was gay and soliciting sex, and he turned violent. Humphrey told the police, he said, doing something like that, he's ready to die. He's giving up his life. Humphrey stated, I chopped him in the neck and I beat him up. I slammed him. It was like a rage, man. It just took over me. In 2018, Humphrey pled guilty to 3rd-degree assault and 2nd-degree intimidation due to bias charges for a 2017 attack on a man he also thought was gay. On that occasion, he was sentenced to a 4-year jail sentence, which was suspended to 3 years of probation after he completed just 1 year in jail. As of this recording, Humphrey is being held on a $1 million bond. Daniel Engeldrum was the 4th of 8 children. He was experiencing homelessness at the time of his death, but he was deeply loved by his family. Friends said Dan was laid back and easygoing. Basketball was his passion, and March Madness brought him true joy. After his death, his family donated his heart, liver, and kidneys. 28-year-old Trevor Gray went out one Saturday night in Waynes County, Mississippi, hoping to meet new friends. He went to a small popular bar, struck up conversation with people, and seemed to be having a good time. They were having such a great time that when the bar closed at 2 a.m., one of the patrons, 32-year-old Landon McKay, invited the entire bar back to his house. In the video at the house, shot under the carport, you can see people milling around, drinking, talking, having a good time. McKay says to the camera, "Are y'all ready?" When Gray walks under the carport, the man appearing to be McKay walks up to him and says, "What's up, bro?" Gray smiles, gives him a head nod, and an instant later, Gray is punched in the face by McKay. The remainder of the video shows Gray being beaten by a number of people. At one point in the video, a man who appears to be McKay is on top of a motionless Gray, pummeling him. He punches him at least 17 times, and no one comes to his aid. Someone who witnessed the beating said, even after the video ended, the beating continued until a man inside of the house ran out and pulled 2 of the men off of Gray. He told Gray to run, just go, leave, as he held the 2 men back. Remarkably, Mr. Gray survived this beating. He was left with facial cuts and bruises and injuries to his eyes and damage to his mouth so severe that his mouth had to be wired shut. McKay and Brown, the 2 men who can be seen beating Gray on the video, were arrested and charged with aggravated assault, which is a felony. Local law enforcement has said the charges could be upgraded to a hate crime, asking the FBI to investigate the possibility of a hate crime. Trevor Gray's brother, Cruz, said when his brother was being beaten, he was being called a queer. Federal laws include the victim's actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, or disabilities. In spite of all of his injuries, Trevor Gray ran to his car and he was able to drive himself home, where he just sat on the sofa for hours in shock, in and out of consciousness. Finally, he sent a picture of his condition to his brother, who convinced him to go to the hospital. Trevor Gray, from what I read, sounds like the kind of guy I'd like to know. In an email statement to the Clarion Ledger, Trevor Gray said, "It's hard to describe my feelings about what happened. Thinking about it, seeing the images of it, I don't and will likely never understand it," he wrote. "All I know for sure is that it won't change who I am. There's always a bright side, always positives in any situation. The outreach I've received in response to these events proves that point." Gray wrote, "The love and support that I've been shown has encouraged me, and I hope that this update encourages you." He added, "My mouth will be wired shut for several more weeks, so if you see me and I don't smile, know that I'm smiling on the inside. Most importantly, believe in the good, give someone a hug, and stay positive." To support Mr. Gray in his recovery, check out the GoFundMe campaign that raised over $16,000 so far. You can find the link in the notes below. Jack Dawson, a former punter on Alabama's Troy University football team, was arrested on Monday, August 22nd, 2020, on multiple charges of assault against his former teammate, John Haynes, including one involving a sexual assault. Dawson, an Australian native, currently a punter at Jacksonville State University, was released on a signature bond. According to the court documents, Dawson assaulted Haynes on 3 separate occasions, including an assault with a pool cue causing bleeding and bruising. In another incident, Dawson broke Haynes' nose by punching him in the face 7 times. Haynes has filed a federal lawsuit against Dawson and a list of coaches. The lawsuit describes an intensely homophobic environment around the Troy football team. Haynes claims that all 3 coaches had prior actual knowledge of the harassment and believed John was being sexually harassed because he was a homosexual. The lawsuit claims the coaches chose not to intervene on the player's behalf because of the supposed sexuality of Haynes. Haynes' lawyers also claim that one of the coaches suggested that he resort to physical violence in response to the attacks. One of the coaches told Haynes the way to end it all was for him to get into a physical confrontation with the players who were bullying him. Haynes' parents reported that their son grew increasingly despondent, often calling home in tears. Troy University has denied all the allegations outlined in the federal complaint and said it will vigorously defend itself in court. One of the incidents that stuck out in my mind is that Hayes says at one of their games, his family was in the stand, and his father, who's in a wheelchair, was there as well. And Dawson pointed to his father and said to Haynes, "I'm going to put you in a wheelchair like your dad." Despite the charges, arrest, and lawsuit, Jack Dawson is now playing for another football team. As for John Haynes, he dropped out of the program at Troy University, and I can't find any record of him where he might be attending school. The corrosive effects of homophobia, like any other hate, isn't relegated to one group of people. It spreads like a weed, making it toxic for everyone. That's why we all have an obligation to stamp it out whenever it rears its ugly head. Because you never know when someone might decide that you or yours need to be dealt with. Thanks so much for joining me. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.